Hello, boys and girls. I gotta tell you, I was going a little stir crazy today, and we finally got out of the house, and I got me a nice hunk of meatloaf inside me from the Georgia house. And boy, oh boy, did it taste so good. Oh man, I feel so much better after eating that. Sorry, I didn't mean to go all Bill Clinton on you guys. We've been going stir crazy in this house for the last 2 days. I feel like I'm caught in and a snow covered upside down, and my children are the demogorgons, and they are just driving my wife and I absolutely batshit crazy. I blame this bombastic bastard of a storm that came through here the other day and just covered our tiny little rancher with 3 feet of snow. Not literally, we got a foot, but we got a few foot of snow drifts coming through here. I never heard of a bomb cyclone before. There's like three different names I heard for this fucking thing, and I just had to look it up, and I guess it's just when pressure drops 24 millibars within 24 hours. That's what makes it a bomb storm. We are having some pretty weird weather patterns, but I mean, between Irma, Harvey, and Maria, and then this fucking thing, I don't know what's going on in the world today. I was watching Tucker Carlson before I started this podcast, and he was debating a climate change activist. And it's I like Tucker Carlson, but those shows suck sometimes because the host always wins. They get cut off. They're on a time schedule, and nobody ever really gets the chance to have a decent conversation at all. The activist made really good points. Tucker Carlson makes very good points. He makes one good point in particular where he has people on and he just says he wants to know the numbers. I do too. I happen to think that it's just HARP fucking with our weather. They're just sending radio signals up to the ionosphere, and they're just playing with our weather and making us more dependent on the government. Just kidding. I'm not a conspiracy theorist or anything. I digress. But I have no EPL news for you guys this week. EPL did have a break. NFL playoffs started this weekend. Before I started this, I just noticed the Tennessee Titans just came back and beat the Kansas City Chiefs. I have no idea what happened to the Kansas City Chiefs this year, but they just blew it in this playoff game. I'm pretty sure the Saints and the Panthers are playing as I speak right now. I'm probably just going to turn that on after I do this. In UFC news, UFC 220 is coming up on January the 20th. Francis Ngannou fights Stipe Miocic for the heavyweight title. I am super excited for this fight. Anything can happen. Somebody's getting put to sleep on that card. Also on that card is Daniel Cormier and Volkan Oezdemir. I said it right. Man, sometimes I have a hard time at pronouncing these guys' names. This guy, Volkan, just sounds like a Vulcan. He looks like he's from another planet, and I have a feeling he is going to break Daniel Cormier in this one. I don't think Daniel Cormier has washed the stench of John Jones off of him from the last fight. So I really think Oezdemir is going to put him to sleep as well. I haven't even checked out the undercard to this yet, and I will give you guys updates on that in future episodes. I'm just really excited about the main event, Ngannou and Miocic. Man, I'm really excited for that one. But the reason why I have you here today is I want to start a new segment on this podcast called Opinions May Vary. What I'll do is I'll take a controversial persons or a topic, give you a story on it, and then I'll give you my opinion on it at the end. And then I'll also just leave you with a wide open ending, and I'll let you guys form your own opinions on the matter because some of the subjects I will talk about have a 50-50 opinion. So I will introduce my first topic, and the first topic is Stanley Milgrim. Stanley Milgrim is known as one of the most influential American social psychologists of the 20th century. He became known for his studies in social norms and obedience. He eventually conducted some of the most unorthodox social experiments in psychology history. Though controversial at the time, his research eventually became a breakthrough into the study of human behaviors. Stanley was born on August 15, 1933, in New York City to Adele and Samuel Milgram. He was the second out of three boys. Miori was his older brother, and Joel was the younger of the three brothers. As a boy, Stanley began to display a great deal of intelligence early on. At the age of 5, after listening to his mother help his older brother study President Lincoln, Stanley went into school and recited everything he had heard to his kindergarten teacher when she asked the students about Abraham Lincoln. The early sign of intelligence would carry on with Stanley into high school, where he would receive a diploma in just 3 years by taking on advanced course loads early on. After high school, Stanley received a full scholarship to Queens College in New York, where he eventually earned himself a bachelor's degree in political science. Shortly after Queens College in 1954, he attended Harvard University. This too, however, required diligence on Stanley's part, as he was initially rejected. After spending a summer taking 4 psychology courses for credit and 2 for audits, Milgram was accepted as a student to the Harvard School of Psychology. In 1960, Milgram received his PhD in social psychology, and then would go on to make some of the biggest contributions to social psychology, from the small world phenomenon to his most prominent experiment to date, the obedience experiment. After taking an assistant professorship job to Yale University, Stanley began to conduct a series of experiments on how and why people obey a person who is by definition an authority figure. Volunteers, who were mostly men, would come in and sit 2 at a time. One would play the teacher and the other would play the learner. The learner was actually an accomplice to the experiment and was not harmed at all. The learner was hooked up to a shock generator and would have to answer a series of questions administered by the teacher. If the answers were wrong, the teacher, who was under the impression he was shocking the learner, was instructed to give the learner a small shock, each shock increasing in voltage up to 450 volts for each wrong answer. The purpose of the experiment was to see just how far the teacher would go as Milgram pressured him continuously, knowing that the learner was being harmed. Stanley Milgram was particularly motivated to conduct this experiment by the dangers of group behavior and blind obedience to authority. The essence of obedience consists in the fact that a person comes to view himself as the instrument for carrying out another person's wishes, and he therefore no longer sees himself as responsible for his actions. Once this critical shift of viewpoint has occurred in a person, all the essential features of obedience follow. Milgram's main concern was that of Nazi Germany during World War II, and wanted to understand just how ordinary, everyday citizens can subject themselves to slaughtering millions of innocent people. What I found most interesting is Stanley Milgram's conclusion to this experiment. Out of all the people he put through the experiment, 65% of them went through the experiment all the way to 450 volts, meaning that the learner could have potentially died, proving to some extent that the Nazis weren't all bad people. It's amazing to see just to see how simple everyday people go through their lives without the realization and appeasing what they believe to be as an authority figure. Stanley Milgram set out to rock the world with this experiment, and I truly believe that this experiment was his biggest contribution to the subject of psychology as a whole. So what do you think, folks? Were all the men donning the oppressive symbol of the Third Reich bad people? Or were they just subjected to appeasing authority figures and falling victim to a psychological phenomenon known as obedience? Opinions may vary. So I really hope you guys enjoyed that little excerpt I like to call Opinions May Vary. If you have any suggestions on topics whatsoever or a suggestion on something I could be doing better, shoot me an email, planetearthpodcast@outlook.com, or just send me a message on Facebook and Instagram, and I will respond to you as quickly as possible. I'm getting a lot of heavy traffic here lately, and it's getting me really excited. So I appreciate you guys listening to me. If you're a new listener, my podcasts are available on iTunes. If you do not have an iTunes, just get on YouTube, search Planet Earth What's Happening podcast in the search bar, or you can go to planetearthpodcast.buzzsprout.com and listen to future episodes from there. So I'm going to keep this one short and sweet. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I like goofy, weird topics like this, and I hope you enjoy them too. See you soon, guys.